Hey guys, welcome back to another video. In today's video, it's about Bitwig 4.1, of course, and the new Bitwig FX Node FX devices. And I want to share some inspirational content with you to give you some ideas what you can do with these devices. It's more like, you know, tip after tip after tip, and then in the end, you maybe have some ideas popping up in your head. Okay, so let's go. Did you know that the node repeats device can go up to audio rate when you switch here to pitch of current note. So when you input a note with your MIDI keyboard or with the piano roll, it plays exactly the frequency in note repeats. So you can use your e-kick, which is a device that doesn't use any pitch input at all. It just triggers the whatever tune you dialed in here. But you can play the e-kick now here in multiple notes, and it sounds interesting. So for instance, when we paint in here some kind of sequence, something like this. When you slow it down, it's just, you know, separate individual kicks, but you can use it like a synthesizer, which is maybe not that helpful, but it's interesting. And yeah, you get some weird sounds out of this sometimes. It's more like a fun fact. Another interesting idea is to take rhythm, for instance, this kick drum here. And this kick drum plays in a certain frequency. And it's in such a low frequency, it's basically like an LFO, plays in a rate that you recognize it as a rhythm. But when you speed it up and go into audio rate, it becomes at some point some kind of pitch or sound. But down here, it's rhythm. But then you can convert maybe from your chord progression here and take the root note and convert it into a rhythm by just, you know, divide it multiple times. So you take basically the pitch, the frequency, and convert it into BPM. And it's something that's not really easy to do. You need some kind of calculator, and it would be nice to have this actually integrated into the BPM section here, where you can just type in a note, maybe C -5 or something like this, and then it converts into BPM setting. This could be interesting. And you see here I have 103.12 BPM, which is exactly the speed of A -5 or A -4 or something. And yeah, you can play basically the same rhythm here for the kick as you have for the root note, just, you know, having the same frequency divided multiple times. And this can be interesting to have this, combined, basically, the rhythm using kind of polyrhythms and your chord progressions. Of course, you can also combine then here this with other notes. For instance, we have here A, and then we have here an E. So we can combine here, or switch this up to an E, and have this combined. Right, so you have here like a different kind of polyrhythm. Or use another percussion element here, maybe a tom or some random sample. So this can lead to interesting results. It's something you can maybe try out. It's not easy to do, but with the calculations here to get your root note frequency into a BPM setting. but it's possible. Something I already showed in a YouTube short is that you can take your chord progression here and use, for instance, an arpeggiator. And this gives you, of course, in kind of a sequence. But in 4.1, the arpeggiator got updated, so every time you change the tempo here, the arpeggiator re-triggers basically or updates the rate every time a step happens. So this makes it now possible to modulate this timing setting here without getting, you know, out of the rhythm. So we can use the steps mod here. And this is also new. We can switch between bipolar and unipolar settings. We have only positive values here. Hit the dice symbol to get, you know, a random pattern. Maybe go to 8 notes here. Go back to 1/4, which is pretty slow. But now we can modulate here, maybe by 2. And every time the steps mod here modulates the tempo, we get a kind of different rhythm. You can also go a step further here and maybe use a second one and say at the end of the sequence we want to go here to dotted notes. Something like this. If you want to. For my taste, it sounds way too off most of the times. But you can also switch here between different settings here, right? We have a lot of different modes, and we can do this here too. And get some different starting points or interesting new rhythms. Then you can put this here into NodeFX layer. And you have like one layer playing this sequence, duplicating this to a second layer. Maybe pitch here the notes up 1 octave. So we're playing a different pattern. Let's see how this sounds. Maybe we change some settings. The Riccochet device sending out balls here to the walls of the room and triggering a note each time. You may be wondering, what's this spatialization slider here, right? Get this brightness in the background. And when you hit here F1, you can see amount that each ball's position in the room modulates its note expressions, with the horizontal position applied to panning and the vertical position mapped to timbre. And yeah, you don't need to randomize these two expressions basically when you use synthesizer. You can just increase here the spatialization slider and get this for free. So we have here maybe some kind of sequence. Let's paint in here something. Major chord. And maybe arpeggiator. Or something like this. And now we have, you can hear it, the panning is modulated randomly. Or not randomly, it's actually where the position of the ball is in the room. But we can also use now the timbre here, this expression, and modulate something. Maybe the decay setting here. Let's see. So you get this basically for free, and when you increase the room or rotate the room, you get different results. Always nice to use the quantize here after this ricochet and dial in some quantization. So in this example, you have just, you know, a beat made with XO, just a kick drum, a snare, a hi-hat, nothing special, dialed in here some kind of swing. This is how the beat sounds. Bit of unfilter here, also hard clip on there, just to make it louder. And then on this track here, I have a sampler, and the FX chain is not really important. In the sampler, I have a multi-sample, and yeah, I've just loaded in here, as you can see on the right side, just selected a bunch of bass sounds. Something random that lies around on my hard drive. Just dragged it in here, and then I selected all the key sounds here and spread it out over the select. So distribute select equally, right? So you can select each of these samples here with the select button. And then I'm using here a modulator, a steps mod, to just step through all of these samples randomly, or just, you know, with this pattern here. And then every time I trigger basically a note, C3 for instance, I just play a different sample. So it plays a different note every time a note comes in, or it plays in the selected note here from this steps mod. And then I'm using note repeats here at 4 times, and you can see I'm modulating here the repeat time with an LFO. This sounds like this. And you can select here whatever you want that feels right for you, or can use a different LFO or modulator. And then I'm using a quantize here to quantize this to 16th notes, but not every time. As you can see, I'm dialing in the forgiveness back and forth. So I'm switching between completely free, repeating completely free, and quantizing to the beat grid. And this is how it sounds here. So you can go in the glitch hop direction pretty easily just with this small little setup. And then if it's too random for you, right, then you probably can just resample it, bounce it down to a track, and then edit it further. But it's a nice little, you know, chain setup for getting these random bass shots or glitch sounds. You can also here select different bass sounds, of course, and, you know, develop it further. So in this setup here, I'm using the same drums as before, but this time here I loaded the preset from the from the Bitwig library, which is called Volker's electric bass fingered fat. And I just use this, this preset here. But this time I'm using also here the quantize, which is modulating here the forgiveness. And the note repeats here, also modulating the speed. It's the same as before, but this time here I introduced the randomize device with the pitch up to 12. So I'm getting random pitches. And then I'm using the key filter here to quantize these random pitches to a scale, right? So instead of playing the bass here pretty pure, which sounds like this, so this is the original bass line. I'm using note repeats. To bring in a bit of funk. Then I'm using the quantize here to quantize the BPM. And then bringing in random pitches. Which sounds already pretty fine to me for random bass. But then you can introduce the key filter to quantize to a scale. So you can create these kind of Squarepusher bass lines, you know, from back in the days. Maybe bring in an amen break, and then you're good to go. Okay, the last tip is just a small one. When you have like a note here that goes into a multi-note, so this is the note, go into a multi-note, so you have like a chord, and then you put in a Dribble here that sounds like this. So the Dribble is basically dribbling all the notes at the same time in the same rhythm. And to separate these individual notes from each other, to have like different Dribble rhythms, you have to use velocity. So when you use your randomize and turn up the velocity here, you can hear now each note has a different rhythm to the Dribble. So the velocity decides at which height you start basically to drop the ball to the bottom. But you don't need to use the randomize. If you use the multi-note here, you can also use the new parameters here. Velocity offset. So you can offset basically the velocity of each note. Right? Or you go with the spread parameter here, which is I think a random parameter. So the velocity can spread 10% in the positive or the negative range at random for each note now, or 20% for this one here. And of course you can use quantize here too. Easy.